Hello students, welcome to the subject of environmental science. We are dealing with unit number 1 and part number 8. We have been introducing ourselves in the A part, that is environment with different contents. Right, as you all can see it, we have dealt with all this content that can be seen on the slide right there. Right, we have done with almost everything except the last part of first unit A section, that is concept of ecology and ecosystem, that we have tried to understood in the previous lecture, and we continue with the same in this lecture also, and we go in the little bit of depth there. If you can see it on the slide, it is that we have dealt with ecology and ecosystem, and in this session we'll be dealing with two types of ecosystem: terrestrial ecosystem, aquatic ecosystem. Terrestrial is related with land and aquatic is related with water. Now before going to this two basic types, we'll try to just recollect what is ecology and what is ecosystem. Now, ecology and ecosystem are closely related terms, right, which describes the interaction of organism in their or with their environment. That means whatsoever living organisms are, how do they interact with their environment, which is abiotic, which is non-living. How do they create an interaction? How do they create the relationship? When you study this, it is said to be ecology or ecosystem. Now let us talk about ecology first, and then we'll see what is ecosystem. Ecology is the study of relationship and interaction of living organism either with other living organism or the surrounding environment. We have dealt quite in detail with the concept of ecology and ecosystem in the previous lecture. The same we are trying to brief here, that if we try to understand both these terms and then we go further, it would be easy for us. Supposingly, if you are talking about ecology, then if somebody asks you that what is ecology, then we must answer it that it is a study of what? It is the study of relationship and interaction of what? Of living organisms with what? With other living organisms or with any other surrounding environment, right? Now then, what is ecosystem? Then ecosystem can be considered as a sub part of ecology. It's not the whole of ecology, but it is a part of ecology that comprises, means that is made up of biotic factor including all the animals, plants and microorganisms, and an abiotic factor including all the non-living physical factors in the environment. That means ecosystem is what? It's a sub part. It's just a small part of ecology, right? And what it comprises of, what it is made up of, then ecosystem is made up of all the living organisms plus the non-living organisms in a particular set of environment. When they interact with each other in a particular environment, it makes its own ecosystem, and that is why it is a subpart. The main difference, what we have to focus here is the main difference between ecology and ecosystem is that ecology is a study of ecosystems, right, and which are the units. They are subparts, and ecosystem are the units that are formed by the interaction of community of organism with the environment in a given situation. That means ecology is a study of what? Ecosystem. Then what is ecosystem? Ecosystems are different units, right? What this unit or what happens in these units? Then there is an interaction created between the community of organisms with their surroundings. When this atmosphere or when this interaction is created and we try to identify it, it becomes the ecosystem, right? So ecology can also be known as bioecology, bionomics, or environmental biology. That is the study of relationship between the organisms and their environment, as we have seen, and these interaction between the individuals, between the population, and between the organisms and their environment forms the ecological system or ecosystems. So ecology has been defined as the study of what? Study of interrelationship of organisms with their environment and each other. That means whatever interaction is created between the living things or with the environment, that becomes the ecology. And as the economy of the nature. It is known as economy of the nature, and as we can see it in the diagram, we see the big oblong there, which is signifying ecology, and within it the ecosystem is created, or ecosystem comes within the ecology, which is the subparts of the whole ecology. Right now, if we try to study that ecosystem in the previous lecture also I told that there are different types of ecosystem. Now what these different types of ecosystem can consist of? It consists of generally two types. One is terrestrial, that means related to land. Everything that is on land we can divide it as terrestrial ecosystem, and everything which is in the water, that means it is aquatic ecosystem. Only two things we need to focus here, because whatever the living things interaction with the non-living things happens, that happens generally on the land. That is why it is terrestrial ecosystem, which is a subpart. And whatever happens within the water, that means we know that so much of the earth portion is consisting of water, and there is altogether a different world within the aquatic bodies, or maybe the water bodies, and that is why altogether there is a different ecosystem in the aquatic area also, and that is what we will try to study as different ecosystem in the further part of the lecture, or maybe in the next lecture. Now here, before going to the types, we need to understand that why ecosystem is so much important and why are we studying here, because it has two different values. One is direct value, the other one is indirect value. Now if we try to understand what is direct value, how ecosystem is directly related, or what direct value do we get from the ecosystem, that means it means the services through which the people are dependent and where the economic gain is easy to calculate can be understood as its direct value. That means wherein whatever we get it, there is economic value for it. We can calculate the value for the consumption use. It may be including fruits, firewood, etc. These are such things that can be used by the people from their own surroundings, right? That means what we are trying to understand here is, it means the services that the people are dependent on such kind of ecosystem, from where they gain the economic gain, and it is easy to calculate. Supposingly there are two types of direct value. One is consumption use and the other one is productive use. Consumption means for our own consumption, for our own use. When we get something from the ecosystem, it is like say fruits, maybe firewoods. Now why do we call it of consumption use? Because these things we get it directly from the nature, from the surroundings, and we can use it for our own purpose, right? And the other direct value is productive use. Productive use can be also known as commercial use. That means everything that we get it, we can sell it and we can earn the money out of it. Then those things that we sell it or we create money out of it, that becomes the part of a direct value. These are such things which can be sold in the market and can provide livelihood. For example, fish, timber, etc. See, if you try to focus on the example here, you'll come to know that fish, or if we talk about timber, then they are such kind of things that definitely we get it from nature, we get it from ecosystem. But when we sell it off, it becomes the means of livelihood, means from where we can earn money. So that is why it is of commercial value. So what we are trying to understand here, that ecosystem has its impact on society with two things. One is direct value, the other one is indirect value. Direct value can be divided into two parts. That is, one is used for consumption use. Everything that we get it from nature and we use it for our own purpose. We are not there to sell it out, and they are generally received from the surroundings. Supposingly, if you have a mango tree in your compound or in your say in your house, then whatever the fruits that you get, you use it for your own purpose, then that can be we are getting it from the ecosystem, we are getting it from the nature, but we are using it for our own consumption. Then such kind of things can be considered as of consumption use. And the other one is productive use, generally known as for the commercial use. When we use the word commerce, that is for sure that it has a direct concern with money, right? So it can provide a livelihood, like if you are having the pond in your house, right, and you are doing the fisheries, or you are involved in fishery work, and if you just try to get the fish and you sell it off in the market, it helps you to earn your livelihood. Then this is kind of the example which tells us that though fish we get it from ecosystem, we get it from nature, but because money is involved there in buying and selling of such kind of product, it becomes of commercial value, and that is the direct value we try to understand, right? We go with the next part, that is indirect value. Now what is this indirect value? Here we can understand the value or impact which cannot be easily priced and calculated economically is the indirect value, like not used for consumption, like research for science and medicine, or a tour in the birds sanctuary. Now this is of indirect value. Actually it cannot be priced, at the same time we are using it, right? Then it gives a kind of indirect value to us. Supposingly if it cannot be used for consumption, suppose if you are making, or if you are doing any kind of research, you are trying to find out the medicines, and for that very purpose if you are using any part of the ecosystem, or we are in that ecosystem and we are trying to find out and we are trying to make any researches, then they are said of indirect value. Again, there is suppose if you are going for a tour in the bird sanctuary and you are enjoying the nature there, then you are not actually paying for it, neither you can consume it. It gives the indirect value, and this can be preserved for the future usages also. Supposingly if national parks are created, say any wildlife sanctuary is created, then directly it does not have to do anything with us, we cannot consume anything out of it, but at the same time we try to see that it is giving indirect value to us. At the same time it is even preserved for the future use. That means for the future generation also we can keep these things in the ecosystem for the indirect value. This is how ecosystem has its own impact on our society, right? Now moving up to the main area here that we are going to see it, and that is two basic types. As I told you, ecosystem can be of two basic types. One is terrestrial, the other one is aquatic. Terrestrial is always the word that has to do something with land, right? જમીનને લગતી કોઈ પણ વાત હોય તો we can call it as terrestrial. Aquatic is related to water. પાણીને રિલેટેડ કોઈ પણ એરિયાની વાત કરતા હોય અથવા તો એનિમલ્સની વાત કરતા હોય તો we generally use the term aquatic. Aquatic animals, aquatic plants likewise, right? So let us study both of them in detail. Now first we try to focus that what is this terrestrial or land ecosystem. Let us see it with simple points here. This ecosystem is in natural state of forest, grasslands, semi-arid areas, deserts, mountains and islands. We know this, right? That land consists of what? If we talk about terrestrial area means where the land is available. Land is available or is being consumed or is being covered by, say, forest. It may be grasslands, it may be desert area, it may be mountain area, or it may be the islands, right? We have noticed high usage of land for urbanization and agricultural development. This definitely helps to increase the production of the food grains as well as the raw material used for consumer goods. We have seen that these land initially or in the olden days it was not much used for urbanization, or maybe it was a limited part of the land was used for agricultural purpose. But with the growth of population, our needs have increased, and because of that what happens is to meet those needs there is requirement to turn into urbanization. That means we try to use this land for say urban purpose, maybe industrial purpose, or it may be for agricultural development. But over usage of this land creates serious damage to our environment. We know that if we start cutting up the forest the grasslands, then what happens is ultimately we are disturbing the ecology, we are disturbing the ecosystem. What happens because of that? We are trying to degrade the environment, we are damaging the environment. Whatever the amount of, say, simply oxygen that we get, or the carbon dioxide that is being taken up by the plants or the forest area, that we are losing it, right? So it is over usage of these lands really harms us. Thus there has to be justifiable use of resources to satisfy needs of the consumption through industrialization and urbanization. Definitely, we are living in a modern world. We need to fulfill our needs, and for that, industrialization is must. Urbanization is must. Let me clear it out the meaning. Industrialization એટલે ઔદ્યોગિકરણ, જ્યાં ખૂબ બધા ઉદ્યોગો આપણે ઊભા કરવા પડે. Or it is urbanization, that means શહેરીકરણ, જ્યાં લોકો say small વિલેજીસ છે કે સ્મોલ ટાઉન્સ છે એ છોડીને નવા અર્બન મોડર્ન સિટીઝમાં રહેવા આવે છે. તો દેટ ઇઝ અર્બનાઇઝેશન, વેરિન એવરી મોડર્ન એમ્યુનિટીઝ આર available. We have seen that there is increase in the consumption, and that has resulted in the unsustainable usage of natural resources. We know that the growing population has led to the increase in so many kind of consumption goods, maybe directly from the nature, or maybe we need to produce it. So what happens is our natural resources are getting used up, extracted very fast. What happens because of that? There is imbalance that is created. As a result, forests have started disappearing, and more areas are covered by desert or infertile land. What happens because of that? We deforest. Forest, afforestation. When we grow forest, it is afforestation. When we try to cut it, it is deforestation. That means, what do? We try to cut the forest, we try to deforest it, and what happens because of that? They are disappearing, means they are not at all seen, or more area is being covered by infertile or maybe semi-arid or maybe dry land. So that is what it happens when we are trying to make overuse of such kind of land. Now here, as far as terrestrial ecosystem is concerned, we can divide it into three parts. Why? Because generally we can see either the forest land, or we can see the grassland, or it may be the desert, right? So whatever the forest area is covered, it is the land that is covered with forest, or maybe the grassland, that is the land which is covered with the grassland, or it may be the desert area wherein the land is being covered with the dry or say semi-arid sand. So first, let us focus on ecosystem. See what happens in each of these ABC. When we are learning forest ecosystem, we are going to see it as a whole answer, in which we'll be studying what is forest ecosystem, its uses, or we may be seeing what are the services being provided by the forest, or maybe the threats and how to protect it. That means this is the whole short note, or maybe the answer that we need to check out. Right? So when we are learning this forest system, the same is applicable for the grasslands also, and for the desert ecosystem also. So forest ecosystem, let us see it one by one. What is forest ecosystem? What are its uses? What are the services that are being provided? What is the threat that is being created, and how it is protected? The same modus operandi or same method will follow with grassland ecosystem also, and desert ecosystem also. Alright, when we cover these three portion, it becomes the terrestrial ecosystem in general. Alright, so let us see the forest ecosystem. It can be understood as the community of different flora and fauna, like shrubs, trees, climbers, and groundwater. When we collect all the shrubs are not completely trees, nor they are grass. They are a kind of shrubs with medium height plants. So when the land is covered with shrubs, trees, climbers means જે સપોર્ટ લઈને ઉગતા હોય એવા પ્લાન્ટ્સ, જેમ કે વેલ, રાઈટ, ઓર ગ્રાઉન્ડ વોટર, everything can be included in the forest ecosystem, right? And there is one more term there, flora and fauna, which we have used this earlier also. Flora means everything related to flowers, and fauna are the plants, right? So our national park and wildlife sanctuaries are the examples of these undisturbed forest. There are following types of forest found in India. That means we are trying to outline what is forest and how India is made up of different types of forest. In India, there are generally two types of forest found. One is coniferous forest, and the other one is broad-leaved forest. Coniferous forest are such wherein it has a low temperature. like the regions of Himalayas. When you go to the foot of Himalayas, you often see that there is a low temperature, means it is cold, right? The trees there, that or the forest there, which are having the tall trees and with the downward sloping branches, means they are tall trees and all the branches come towards the land. Such kind of typical coniferous forest we get to see. Generally the leaves of such trees are cone in shape, and that is why they are known as coniferous forest. In India we get to see such kind of forest in Himalayas. And the other one is broad-leaved forest. Broad-leaved forest, broad means પહોળું, lived એટલે જેના પાંદડા પહોળા હોય એવું. તો એવા જે ડિફરન્ટ શેપ્સના ફોરેસ્ટ છે એને we can subdivide it into evergreen forest, mangrove forest, thorn forest and deciduous forest. Evergreen forest એવી ટાઈપનું ફોરેસ્ટ છે જે બારે માસ આપણને લીલુંછમ જોવા મળતું હોય. It is green throughout the year almost. Mangroves are all that are seen on the coastal areas, right? Thorn forest can be seen generally in the desert area, and deciduous, the rest of the forest can be considered as deciduous forest, right? So these all types of forest we get to see in India. Now we are moving towards what this ecosystem is all about. If we are talking about forest ecosystem, what is the use of this forest and its product? One by one we shall be seeing it. It produces products which supports the living. Naturally we get so many things from the forest. It gives timber and fuel. It serves economic benefit to the local people, means a few things are being taken up from the forest and then they are sold out into the market. So at times what happens is that these things can be also used for selling purpose, and for the local people it becomes the economic activity. Next, it helps the to control the climate and even the water content. If you have you must have learnt it somewhere in 5th 6th standard that if you get to go, or if you get to visit in the thick forests, then the temperature of this thick forest is really controlled. It's cool inside, and it's the temperature is quite low than the normal land, right? So it helps to control the climate also, and even the water content is being maintained, because the forest helps to have more number of trees. More number of trees are there, then what happens is soil erosion is not there. જે ધરતીનું અથવા તો જે ઉપલા લેયરનું જે સોઇલ છે એનું જે ધોવાણ છે એને પણ આપણે અટકાવી શકીએ છીએ. So those are the uses of the forest. Even forest helps to retain the moisture. જે ભેજનું પ્રમાણ છે એને પણ એ મેન્ટેન કરે છે, જેનાથી કુલ atmosphere ઊભું થઈ શકે છે. Needless to say, we get fruits, roots, herbs, medicine, etc. can also be received from the forest. So these are the uses, or these many products we get it from the forest, that we have seen as A part. Under the B part, what are the services that are being provided? See, one thing is forest provides us with different type of products we have seen, and it also provides with different types of services. Now what are they? It controls the water flow, or maybe the flow of water in the form of streams and rivers. If more forests are there, then you can have more number of rivers and streams, which helps to have the water bodies on the maintain the water bodies on the land. Next comes up it is helpful for storing groundwater. I told you just couple of minutes back that if you have more number of forests, there are more number of trees. Naturally, when trees are more in number, we have the roots that hold the groundwater, or it helps to soak the groundwater in the lower level of the land. It is supportive in protecting soil erosion. ઉપરના જે લેયરનું ધોવાણ છે એને પણ અટકાવી શકાય છે with the help of forest. It helps to control temperature, as I told you. It helps to balance the carbon dioxide and oxygen. We all know that plants take up carbon dioxide that we release and gives out oxygen. So more the number of trees, more would be the controlled carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and there will be more proportion of oxygen which we use it for our living. So it is very important to have the forest around us. It helps to provide various herbs and cure diseases. We know this. We get so many medicines, we get so many other things in the form of various medicinal herbs which cures so many fatal diseases also, and it also gives industrial products. Very important. Many of the industries depend on the product that we get it from the forest, like timber. right? Timber means wood that we use it for maybe construction purpose. Then this cannot be achieved, or this cannot be is not available from anywhere else except the forest. So it is the services that we get from the forest. Here in the C part, we are going to see the threats. Threats એટલે કયા ભય છે, forest માટે કયા ભય સ્થાન છે, why the forest preservation is so important, and why we need to protect it. But before that, we need to check out with the threats also. It grows slowly. We all know this, that it's easy to cut down the forest in minutes or maybe in hours or in days, right? But when we want to grow forest, it's very difficult because it takes so many years. So the best example to understand the threat is that the forest takes longer time, it grows very slowly. બીજું જે થ્રેટ કે ભય છે એ ઓવર એક્સપ્લોટેશન ઓફ ફોરેસ્ટ રિસોર્સિસ. જે પણ રિસોર્સિસ આપણને ફોરેસ્ટમાંથી મળે છે, વી આર ઓવર એક્સપ્લોઇટિંગ ઇટ, વી આર ગેટિંગ ટુ મચ ઇન ધ ક્વોન્ટિટી. વી ડોન્ટ થિંક દેટ if we start extracting this much things from the forest, then it will be difficult for forest itself to survive. So it's over exploitation. Next, due to change circumstances, there is a problem for sensitive species. So many species એટલે કેટલી જાતિ પરજાતિ જે જુદા જુદા ઇન્સેક્ટ્સની, એનિમલ્સની છે જે ફોરેસ્ટમાં સર્વાઈવ કરતી હોય. હવે આપણે ફોરેસ્ટને જ આપણે ખતમ કરી નાખશું તો ઇવન ધીસ સેન્સિટિવ સ્પીસીઝ મે ડાય. હેવી યુઝ ઓફ ફોરેસ્ટ પ્રોડક્ટ્સ ફોર મેન્યુફેક્ચરિંગ પર્પઝ. જુદી જુદી મેન્યુફેક્ચરિંગ પર્પઝ માટે પણ આપણે ઘણા બધા ફોરેસ્ટ પ્રોડક્ટનો ઉપયોગ કરતા હોય છે. દેટ્સ ઓલ્સો થ્રેટ ટુ ધ ફોરેસ્ટ ઇકોસિસ્ટમ. Heavy removal of trees for wood, population growth, urbanization and industrialization, maybe increase in agricultural land. See, what happens is, because of the overpopulation, they are all interrelated point. Due to overpopulation, what happens is we need more number of crops, we need more amount of food, and especially if you are talking about India, then many of us are say vegetarian in nature. That means we need more number of crops, and we need more number of pulses and cereals and all those agricultural things, right, for our as our main diet. And for that, we need to, what happens is, we need to take up with the agricultural land, we need to deforest, and those land is then used for the agriculture purpose. The next comes up is mining and dam construction. Too much of mining requiring different types of minerals or different types of metals, we keep on mining in the forest area, that actually is a threat for it. And even the dam construction, at the time of dam construction, it is deforested, means the forests are being cut, and then the construction is done of such kind of dams and check dams. Next is degradation of forest ecosystem. It's a great threat to wildlife. So many wild animals and creatures live in the forest. If we start degrading it, or if we start exploiting this forest ecosystem, everything in the wildlife gets disturbed. Next is wild animals and wild plants may be destroyed forever. There are so many species who have lost their lives just because of the non-existence of forest, or because the forests are not available in the proper quantity, or trees are not there, or maybe the required climate is not there. So many species have extincted એટલે ખતમ થઈ જવું. તો આ બધા થ્રેટ્સ છે. આ થ્રેટ્સ ન ઊભા કરવા હોય, અથવા આ થ્રેટ્સને આપણે કન્સિડર ન કરવા હોય, અથવા તો આવું ન થાય એ કરવું હોય, તો what should be done? The environment or the forest ecosystem should be protected. What steps can be taken up? Number 1, use of forest resources in sensible manner, means justifiable use of forest resources should be there. Over exploitation should be avoided. Next is use of alternative for fuel, wood wherever possible, means wherever we can use other source of energy, say like sunlight, then we should avoid using wood for fuel, right? Next is planting of more trees. Naturally, if we keep on planting more number of trees, because the trees are not grown in few days or few months, it takes a longer period of time, say years, to grow. And if we plant it today, next 30-35 years we get to see this forest. So if you want to protect one forest, this is one of the ways of planting more number of trees. Developing diverse species through national park and wildlife sanctuaries. By creating the wildlife sanctuaries or maybe national park, what are we doing? We are trying to protect. What we are trying to protect? We are trying to protect the whole forest ecosystem means whosoever living things, and the abiotic, that means non-living environment is there, everything gets protected, right? And if a continuous efforts should be made to plant the trees, વધારે ને વધારે લોકો એવું ધ્યાન રાખે કે there is more plantation of trees which helps to protect the ecosystem. So here we are ending up with the first part, that is forest ecosystem, right? The next that comes up is grassland ecosystem. Now grasslands are what? See, in forest you get to see so many huge trees, or maybe tall trees, or maybe different types of trees, but grassland has its own typical feature. Let us see what is grassland. It is comprised of wide range of landscapes in which grass and small vegetation grow. They are not exactly trees, they are the herbs and shrubs. That means they are the small plants that are grown, right? And moreover, wide range of plants are seen, and this can be known as the grassland ecosystem. It covers the areas where there is less rainfall, જ્યાં ઓછો વરસાદ પડે છે ત્યાં આવા ગ્રાસલેન્ડ્સ બહુ જલ્દીથી ઉગી જતા હોય છે, અને એ it does not allow the trees to grow, but our grasslands છે એ બહુ ઇઝીલી ઉગી શકતા હોય છે. Here the quality of soil is poor. Again અહીંયા જે ક્વોલિટી ઓફ સોઇલ છે એ ગ્રાસલેન્ડને અલાવ કરે છે, બટ મોટા ટ્રીઝને એ એટલું ન્યુટ્રિશન આપી શકતી નથી. What the soil qualities, that means poor. In this region the low rainfall supports the growth of grass but not the trees. That is what I said. Due to rains or due to less amount of rain, the grasses can grow but trees cannot grow here, and that is the biggest disadvantage of grassland. It appears seasonally. Again, whatever the plants, you can see it in the first half of the year, cannot be seen throughout the year. That means it appears seasonally. According to season, these grasslands may be created or it may be washed away. The next is it's of great support for the birds, mammals, insects using its grazing area. You may have noticed that so many mammals and birds and insects, they survive by just living in this area in the grasslands. So it's very important to maintain the grassland. Now what is the usefulness? Let us see it. It is that part of the nature that provides us with the biosphere. Biosphere એટલે જ્યાં living, non-living, hydrosphere, atmosphere, લિથોસ્ફિયર આ બધા એકબીજા સાથે કોન્ટેક્ટમાં આવતા હોય અને એક આખો જીવંત વાતાવરણ ઊભું થતું હોય. દેર ઇઝ લાઈફ ઇન ઇટ. That is what is known as biosphere. So here the biosphere is created. Next usage is many types of species and herbs are found here. So many types of species are found. So many types of animals can be seen. So many creatures can be seen, right? And even the herbs can be found out there. Some very sensitive species also survive here. So in this grassland, so many special type of insensitive species also live here. Next is farmers and shepherds are very much dependent on this grassland because their domestic animals feed on this grassland, right? જે પણ grassland છે એ ચરવાનું કામ કોણ કરે છે? તો કે farmersના domestic animals. So this is how it is useful. It is used for farm, sheds and thatch houses. That means many a times these grasslands may be used for say thatch houses or maybe farm shades, means creating the shades for farming purpose. And next, tall trees in grassland are also used for the fuels. Many times the grasslands, when there is short of say firewood, then these people can be called upon, and then what happens is you can use this grassland for fuel purpose also, right? So at times tall trees can be also seen. Next comes up is threats to grassland. Now what are the threats created? What are those difficult things that grassland has to face? Overutilization of grasslands by rural communities. Too much of grassland is being used by the community living nearby. It covers only 3.7% of total land. In fact, ઘણી બધી લેન્ડને ગ્રાસલેન્ડમાં ફેરવી શકાય પણ હવે 3.7 જ ગ્રાસલેન્ડ એરિયા બચ્યો છે. Few grasslands are converted into irrigated farmlands, which is dangerous. Means the grasslands are being cut and there is irrigation facility that is being provided to the farmers or maybe to the villages, and when we do this we have to remove the grassland area. Next is industrialization in these areas. That means more and more industries coming in such areas. What happens because of that? You have to cut down the grass. Next is domestic animals depending on this land degrades the land. Whosoever animal comes there and it starts grazing એટલે ચરવા માંડવું, રાઈટ. તો એનાથી શું થાય છે? તો ઘણા વખતે અથવા લાંબા સમયે એ લેન્ડ છે એ ડિગ્રેડ થતી જાય છે. નેક્સ્ટ, રિપીટેડ ફાયર્સ એન્ડ અધર હ્યુમન એક્ટિવિટીઝ. ઘણી બધી વખત આપણે સાંભળતા હોઈએ છીએ કે ગ્રાસલેન્ડમાં ફાયર લાગી જાય છે. What happens because of that? It gets disturbed, it becomes difficult to replant it even at times. Then because of the many human activities like littering, throwing the garbages here, in such cases what are we doing? It is creating a threat to the grassland. Next is agriculture and tree plantation. Too much of agricultural plant will change the grassland into agricultural land. Or overgrazing એટલે ચરવાનું જે કામ છે એ શીપ્સ, ગોટ્સ અને અધર કેટલ્સને છૂટું મૂકી દેવામાં આવે. Then what happens because of that? They graze the grasslands, and this is how grasslands get disturbed. Next comes up is many grassland species have disappeared in last 50-60 years. Even we have not seen those species, and they have been already extincted, and there are many such species which will not survive even for the small period of time. That means they are on the verge of extinction. એ ખતમ થવાના આરે છે. Next is over a period of time the fine and the land gets degraded. After a period of time you feel that the it cannot be used for more purposes, right? So this is what happens, and these are the threats to the grasslands, right? When we move on to the protection, how we can protect it? Overgrazing can be stopped. Means ચરવા માટે આ land available ન થવી જોઈએ. Some part of the grasslands can be closed to maintain the rotational system. Even the grasslands can be fenced. It cannot be allowed to habitate. That means people are not allowed there. And if that happens, then what happens is rotational grass can grow and these lands can also develop. Fire prevention can be adopted. That means every now and then if the fire is caught in such kind of grasslands, it can be avoided. Soil and water management in hilly region can be done. National park and sanctuaries can be developed there. Even the grassland should not be converted into tree plantation, as it reduces the natural feature and harms the unique species living there. So whatsoever is there, we can use it there itself, and necessarily transformation should not be done. Awareness program should be there on the grassland. And the last one is it should be a national priority to maintain grasslands. Means the grassland should be the first priority of the ruling government, so that we can maintain it, we can avoid the disturbances, and we can maintain this ecosystem properly, right? We are moving towards the third terrestrial region. First was forest, the next is grassland, and the third one is desert ecosystem. We all know what is desert ecosystem. The ecosystem in which it has a dry climate, right? સૂકું વાતાવરણ હોય એવું. In Himalayas cold is there. There is too much of cold. In Rajasthan there is desert and special typical deserts are there. It is covered with typical grasses. Then next is there is inadequate rainfall. The rainfall does not come, or there is no rain for a sufficient amount. So what happens is because of that the shrubs and thorny trees grow in the region. So that may be one of the characteristic of desert. Next is in desert and semi-arid region we find many unique insects, reptiles, and animals, etc. Means we hardly know that there are so many insects, there are so many reptiles that can be seen in the desert region, or semi means half, arid એટલે હવા, that means suku, right? So that is what is known as the desert and semi arid regions. Let us go with the usefulness, ABC. First of all, the deserts can be used for grazing purpose, like for the animals like camel, goats, or cattle. Crops like jawar bajra also are cultivated here, so that what happens is we can um, use it for the local people. The next is growing natural gases, and it's growing natural grasses and some local varieties is also possible in such areas. That means in these areas we can even grow the grasses, or even it can be used for varieties of other purposes. The next one is it is useful for genetic engineering workers or research, etc. Right, so it is useful for even the research work that may be done in the desert region. Here we are talking about threats to the desert region. See, if there are threats to the forest area, there are threats to the grasslands, even the threats are available for the desert. And what care should be taken? We should protect the deserts from such kind of threats. Now, what kind of threats can be seen? Population is the greatest threat, we know. Imbalanced development of the area, the desert area may not be grown very fast, or may not be developed very fast, that leads to the threat. Or maybe there is imbalance development in such areas, right? So what happens is the desert ecosystem gets spreaded fast. Too large irrigation system may also prove a type of threat. Desert is highly unproductive region for the other crops. Even just jowar bajri and few typical crops grow here, but all types of crops are not available. So that's a threat for the desert. Excessive use of groundwater, because the groundwater available maybe in the areas nearby the desert is being used excessively. Then what happens is the whole nearby area gets dried up in the short run. Next is special species living in this region is threatened by human activities. There may be so many human activities, or maybe such kind of activities which actually harms the desert area. So that though these are the threats that can be noticed in the or noticed for the desert ecosystem, right? The next and the last one comes up is protection of desert region. How we can protect the desert region? Then the old tradition of the people living in the desert region can be maintained. They should be allowed to live there and without any kind of disturbance. Again, they should be allowed to keep up their tradition traditionally, in whatsoever way they are living. They should not be interrupted. Next, wildlife sanctuaries or national park can be developed there, so that the desert can be preserved. There should be special care taken up to maintain the desert region. We can take special care to see that desert region is maintained, and the steps for sustainable development can also be done. Means sustainable means for a long time we are not endangering any kind of quality, and there is development of such areas. Then we can protect the desert region very well, right? So here we are ending up part 8, wherein we have seen the different ecosystem can be mainly divided. I am repeating it for you. The terrestrial ecosystem, that means related to land, and there is also aquatic ecosystem which is related to water ecosystem, right? So both these makes uh, the kind of ecosystem. Here we have tried to focus only on terrestrial. In this session we have focused on terrestrial ecosystem, wherein we have studied the forest ecosystem, the grassland ecosystem, and the desert ecosystem. In the next session we'll be going forward, and we'll be learning about aquatic ecosystem. By the time we meet next, it's a goodbye from my side, and take a good care of yourselves and keep jotting down the points of each lecture. Thank you.